In 1867, the Prussians formed the North German Federation after winning a war against the Austrian Empire. After this war in 1870, the French invaded the North German Federation. This would become known as the Franco-Prussian War. This invasion caused the South German states to unite with the North German Federation. After winning the war, the North German Federation formed Germany. What if this changed and France won the Franco-Prussian War? In this video, we will be going over that outcome. After the Prussians had won a war against Austria and formed the North German Federation, the French saw the Prussian expansion as a threat to the balance of power, so Napoleon III demanded territorial concessions along the west bank of the Rhine to fortify the French border with the German states. Bismarck, the leader of the North German Federation, wanted to unify Germany and saw a war with France as necessary to do so. Bismarck rejected the demands. After this, the threat of a Spanish-Prussian alliance caused the French to declare war on the Prussians. The French had around 400,000 men in reserve, and the Prussians had over 1 million men in reserve. This difference in amount is because of the different systems they used. In 1870, the French invaded with 200,000 men. The French made initial gains. The Germans had superior infantry tactics, which helped them encircle some French soldiers. The Germans kept advancing to France. The Germans then encircled Metz and Sedan. Napoleon III was in Sedan. After they both fell, the French put up a defense in Paris and then surrendered in 1870. What could we change? We could change the war starting a few years later because the French had made urgent reforms. These reforms enacted universal conscription and a shorter period of service, which increased the numbers of reserves, which would swell the army to a planned strength of 800,000 on mobilization. Those who were not conscripted were to be enrolled in the Grande Mobile, a militia with a nominal strength of 400,000. When the war broke out, these reforms weren't completely implemented. To further strengthen French numbers, let's say Napoleon III expanded the age range for universal conscription. This would cause the French to have a mobilization strength of 1.3 million men and 500,000 men in the Grande Mobile. The war with these reforms. Let's say the war starts in 1879 after all of these reforms were fully implemented. This would cause the French to be able to mobilize about 1.8 million soldiers in the war compared to the Germans that would be able to mobilize about 1.2 million soldiers during the war. With this numerical superiority and superior guns, the French would be able to turn their initial offensive into a full-scale offensive and win some initial engagements at Mainz and Trier. This would cause the Germans to be a lot more defensive and set up a fallback line across the Rhine River. The French would then take advantage of the German retreat and cross the Rhine River. After this, the French would take Stuttgart, Frankfurt, and Cologne. After these significant gains, the Prussians would surrender. The North German Federation would be turned back into Prussia, losing the Rhineland to France, and they would be forced to re-give independence to the South German states that joined them when France declared war on them. Immediate consequences. After being stripped of the Rhineland and the southern German states, Austria-Hungary would invade Prussia, smelling blood in the water. They would also reassert their influence over the newly independent South German states. In this war, the Prussian troops would have been exhausted from the war with the French, and they would also be lacking manpower. This would cause them to almost immediately negotiate a peace after losing Silesia to the Austro-Hungarians. In this peace deal, the Prussians would be forced to return Silesia to Austria-Hungary and give Denmark back Schleswig and Schleswig-Holstein. After all these wars, the Prussians would have gone from a major rising power competing to be the strongest power on mainland Europe to a mid-sized European nation comparable in power to Italy. After losing all these lands, the Prussians would go from a population of 40 million to around 23 million. This defeat would also cause the Prussians to become even more militaristic. The Germans proposed the Berlin Conference, which partitioned Africa, so in this universe, there's a good chance it never happens. This would be because the Prussians are a lot more focused on internal affairs, so they wouldn't do any colonizing. Since the Berlin Conference never happens, Africa could be colonized a lot slower, which could affect a lot of things. This could also lead to smaller things happening, like Portugal connecting their colonies with Mozambique and Angola. I can't know for sure what would happen, but I would assume the French, British, and Italians get more African land in this universe. There would also most likely still be native African nations to this day. Alternate World War I. At this point, we really can't predict what World War I would be like. I will make a rough prediction. In this war, the Prussians would want to reclaim German lands from France, Denmark, and Austria, while the Italians would want French, Austrian, and German lands. This would mean the Prussians and Italians would ally. The Austro-Hungarians would want to take land from Italy and release nations from Prussia. This would make the sides of the war Prussia and Italy versus France, Austria-Hungary, and Denmark. The Russian Empire could side with either the Prussians or the French for ethnically Polish/Ukrainian lands from Prussia or Austria-Hungary. They could be a main decider of the war. There's also a chance that the British would join a side to preserve the balance of power, but we couldn't know for sure. There's also a chance the Russians don't join the war at all. This war could also start from any event. If you liked the video, you could like, comment, and subscribe to help me against the YouTube algorithm.